Everybody, this is Dr. AnthonyChaffee. I'm here today with Bella, the steak and butter gal, as a special guest. Thank you very much for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Yeah, not a problem. For those of for people that don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So I've been carnivore for 3 years now, and I started off as a vegan. So I was vegan for 6 years before I decided to go all in carnivore. And what happened was I started to see a lot of health concerns, specifically losing my cycle, so amenorrhea. I lost my cycle for 2 years and I actually got my blood tested. My doctor literally had to sit me down and tell me you are deficient in some very vital nutrients. I was extremely deficient in vitamin D. I think my number was 6, very, very low.
Oh,
Yeah. And she told me you either have to supplement intensely as a vegan or just eat some meat. So she kind of like slapped me back to reality when she sat me down. And I decided to Google and YouTube ex-vegan to carnivore just to see if there was anybody out there who did that. And to my surprise, a lot of people, a lot of videos, a lot of success stories. I have to shout out Azra Conlu. She inspired me a lot. So that's how I went carnivore.
oh, very good. All right. So how long ago was that now that you've gone carnivore?
3 years.
3 years, yeah. And so what were the benefits that you found in making that switch?
Yeah. So I went from vegan to carnivore overnight. And, at first there were a lot of things that I had to struggle with. For example, loose stools. For me, it lasted for about a month. But I have to say the benefits really outweighed the difficulty of me just going carnivore and eating only meat. The first thing that I felt was energy. I felt like I could finally just see from black and white to HD color. It was that big of a difference. My first bite of carnivore was eggs cooked in Kerrygold butter. And I actually dreamed of that meal for months leading up to going carnivore. And so it was this sensation that I never felt before. And I just felt like this is exactly what my body needs, what it has been crying out for. So it was really the fats and the nutrients. And I really did not limit how much fat I allowed myself to eat. I also did not limit how much quantity I ate in general. And I think that went a very long way in my healing. I had a lot of healing to do. The biggest one, of course, was my hormones, bringing back my cycle. But at that point, my skin was a mess. I had a lot of cystic acne. I had psoriasis. I had eczema. So I would say 3 months, I saw some really big changes and benefits to my skin. But the immediate benefit was mental clarity, energy, and finally satiation.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that a lot as well. Obviously, there's more longer term health benefits that people get, and then slowly healing and change. Especially the hormonal things take quite a lot of time to normalize, and then have the effects on your body as well. But yeah, the mental clarity thing, it seems to be just very quick. I noticed that myself as well, where I remember just always being like just in a fog, just in like a fuzzy state. And I remember thinking, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I feel like I'm tired all the time, but I'm not. I had a great sleep. I felt good in the morning. And then all of a sudden I'm feeling foggy and tired the rest of the day. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then instantly when I stopped eating these things, I started eating more meat and fat. It was like, yeah, like you say, it just, your brain just wakes up. And we certainly see that in people, especially in Alzheimer's, or people that are getting older and they have this insulin resistance in their brain, and their brain starts to just slow down, and it really doesn't work as well as it should. And then they go even just keto, but especially carnivore, and it's like a light switch comes on. So that's great.
Yep.
Yeah, you were saying you had some autoimmune issues. How are those? How are those now? How long did those take to resolve?
Yeah, the autoimmune were mostly skin related, psoriasis and eczema. So the eczema would really concentrate throughout my body, but mostly my chest and my arms. And I just remember ever since I was a little kid, I would be suffering with eczema, and it would itch so bad that I would literally wake up in blood, just bleeding.
Oh wow.
Because at night, yeah, it would just be uncontrollable, the amount that I would just itch because it was so dry. So I also remember always going to the doctor, renewing my prescription for eczema ointments and creams. Upon going carnivore, I am completely ointment, medicine free, whatever it is that these doctors prescribe me. I don't need it anymore because it really just healed. It went away. With psoriasis, that focused all over my face, mostly temples. And that really just naturally went away as well as my acne. My acne improved just, it's like night and day. When I look at my old pictures of how it used to be when it was at its worst, I cannot believe it, because I would have bright red, cystic, pus-filled pimples all over my face. And you would think that it would at least leave some really deep, dark, pigmented scars.
Mhm.
But, the skin just really has a way of repairing and healing on carnivore.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you haven't had any problems since then?
Nope, it's really just uphill from now. I just feel like the more dedicated, consistent I am with carnivore eating, it's effortless to me now.
Yeah.
I keep seeing benefits in pretty much everything.
Yeah. And so how, are you very, very, very strict, or what is your sort of normal diet at the moment?
So I would say I'm 100% all in carnivore since day one. I'm pretty
Nice.
good with, making a decision and sticking to my decision, of course,
Mhm.
if I feel my best. So
Yeah.
you were talking a little bit on mental clarity. I basically am very passionate about chasing mental clarity, chasing how can I be most productive as possible, because I am a musician. I
Mhm.
actually started carnivore when I was studying for my master's at Juilliard. So it was a lot of stress, lots of
Mhm.
competition when you're at school there. So obviously, I wanted to be able to practice as little as possible, but get in as much work as possible in progress.
Mhm.
So I really liked to tweak what I was eating on carnivore after I adapted. I would say 2 months in, I started playing around with, okay, what if I add in some raw salmon? How do I feel? What if I really up the fats with butter? How do I feel? And that's kind of what I do to this day. I'm super passionate about just tweaking things on carnivore, but I am pretty strict.
Good. That's very great. Do you have coffee or artificial sweeteners, stevia, things like that?
So I say pretty strict. The only thing that
Yeah.
I have that is not carnivore is black coffee, 1 cup a
Yeah.
day. And actually, after I interviewed you, I felt so bad that I kept the coffee in, because you had like a segment where you were talking about how bad coffee is, and I was like,
Mhm.
man,
Yeah.
I this is my last vice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is though, is that if you're down to that, then you're obviously doing better than nearly anyone else out there.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, I wouldn't stress too much about that. I mean, for me, I definitely, I notice a huge difference,
mm,
with coffee. Like, as I've said before, I don't really get sore after I work out. It doesn't matter how long I've been out of the gym.
yeah.
I go when I work out and I feel fine. And then I have 1 cup of black coffee and I'm sore for 2 days. And, and someone's like, well, that's not what I want, obviously, but it's also like, that's clearly having a bigger effect on my system, than I would have realized before, certainly. And so
Mhm.
for me, just having even that effect, I don't want it. And, and I do talk to people and they're saying, oh yeah, no, I still kind of get sore after working out. And it's like, you drink coffee? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's why. I had a doctor I was working with, and he's an orthopedic surgeon, really good guy. And he started getting really interested in a carnivore diet. And so he started doing it himself. And,
Mm,
we would have like, take lunches together and just hang out and talk about it. And he was feeling great. And then we went to the gym together. And like I put him through like a very serious workout, and he someone who hadn't been to the gym as much as I had. And so, I was pushing really hard and he's like, well, while I'm operating tomorrow, I don't want to go too hard because I don't want to be sore. And I'm like, well, you won't be, if you, have actually been just eating carnivore. And so he was like really nervous about it, but we did like a lot of a lot of sets. It wasn't just like 3 sets of a certain workout. We were doing like 6 or 8 sets of multiple different exercises in the same
oh,
body group. And he was saying, he's like, well, he's like, oh, I'm interested. I'm interested to see if if I actually don't get sore tomorrow. And I was like,
mm,
yeah, well, I'm actually interested to see how pure you've been. Because if you have been pure, you won't get sore. And so he was just kind of looking at me quizzically. The next day he was fine. He was just like, yeah, that's crazy. Like, I'm not even sore. Like, I feel fine. Halfway
wow.
through the day, we're sitting in the break room and he's there. And, one of the drug reps, or device reps came, brought coffee for everyone. I didn't have any. And, he was there and he's sort of like, halfway through his cup of coffee and he's just like, you know what? I am kind of feeling sore. Actually, I am kind of feeling sore on that. And I just pointed at the coffee in front of him and he just goes,
Oh,
ah, damn it. because it was that quick. It was within, 10, 20 minutes of him drinking this coffee, he was already feeling sore. And so, when you sort of see that contrast, when you have it out of your system, sometimes may make the decision. But at the same time, if you're already in it and you're already feeling okay, then you may not have too much reason to quit it. So I understand that.
Look, I'm listening. I'm considering everything that you say. So the day will come, I promise. And I will document it for everyone.
All right. Yeah, that's good. What made you go vegan in the first place? Like that's interesting as well. You ran for 6 years. That's a long time.
6 years. Yep. And with the whole thing, like when I make a decision, I really just follow through. And I would say by year 3 is when I should have stopped, because that's when my health declined and I started seeing 0 results. But I went vegan from a standard Chinese/American diet. So I was really obsessed with just staying in shape. And I was 18 at that time. So I was in high school. I was gaining that freshman 15. So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to gain weight. I need to start losing. So it was this mentality where I was very much focusing on my weight. And on top of that, I had to make sure I fit in these tiny little dresses so I can go on stage. So I started obsessing over how to lose weight quick. And for some reason at that time, when I Googled how to lose weight, Freely the Banana Girl showed up. I don't know if you know her, but she's like, oh, okay. So quite a lot of vegans will know her because she was quite a big vegan diet guru at that time. And she was touting this diet where it's like, if you eat raw till 4, so raw fruits, raw veg until 4 p.m., you start eating cooked starches, you will be able to get a 6-pack like me, says Freely, right? And she had this ripped figure. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try it. So I tried it and I saw weight loss. But thinking back, I think I lost so much weight because I was cutting out all of the junk, right? So I was eating lots of seed oils, rice every single day. Well, I kept eating rice actually when I was vegan, but tons of junk, fast food as well. So of course, when you cut out that junk and then you just focus on whole foods, plant-based, yes, you will see some weight loss, possibly some results. But then, it really didn't stay for long. My weight started fluctuating. I started gaining a lot of water weight, lots of water retention. But that is why I went vegan.
Yeah, that's something that, I was watching, because I do like watching, I do Oppo research all the time. I want to make sure that, I'm not missing something. So I'll look at like different, vegans, and I try to look at, doctors and nutritionists and different people that really do try to bring facts and studies. And I'm always very interested. I don't want to be missing something. I don't want to be, a victim of confirmation bias and just look at the things that I want to look at. I want to see everything and see what the merits are behind it. And so, which has also, benefited me when I do these debates with vegans as well, is because I know all their arguments already and I know why they're wrong already. So like they'll start saying something, I'll like finish their sentence for them and show them the studies and show them the things and show them why that's actually not the case. But, I was watching one the other day where they were talking about all these different studies showing that, plant-based diet was so much better and, did a lot of benefit when you switched over to it. But all of these studies, we're comparing it to the standard American diet, the standard Western diet with a lot of, processed crap and sugar. And then you're going whole foods. Obviously, you're going to get benefit. And then they would talk about the carnivore diet and keto, and they were like, well, yeah, some of these things have benefits. Some people do benefit, but that's really just compared to like a standard American diet. Like, so obviously you're eating all this crap, but then you're going to something. Obviously that's going to be some improvement, but obviously still bad. It's like all of your studies and all of the stuff that you were touting as like, oh, this is conclusive, are only comparing to the standard American diet as well. But you're saying that's a, you're detracting from, people going carnivore for the exact same reason. So that never, so I thought that was pretty flawed. But yeah, you're right. I mean, when you're going from eating a bunch of high octane crap to then eating more whole food. I mean, whole food, anything by and large is going to be okay unless you're eating something that's just straight up poisonous, like, hemlock or something like that. You can make a salad out of that too, or, tobacco is a leafy green vegetable. It looks like kale, make a salad out of that sometime, but if, as long as you're not doing that, it's not too bad.
Mhm.
That was one of the things too. How do you feel about, how much people are eating? The people talk about calories in, calories out, but obviously
Yep.
when you're eating different things, I feel that, you get sort of different results. What has your experience been with that?
Oh yeah, my experience with that is it just goes to show that calories in, calories out is not entirely true. So when I was vegan, I would really restrict. I
Mm,
counted calories. I really made sure I was monitoring that number on the scale in that calorie tracker every single day. And yet I still struggled with weight. I still had lots of weight fluctuations. I still had a lot of weight gain during that time of the month.
mm.
And then when I go carnivore, right, I literally started off eating 5 pounds a day.
Oh, wow.
And at least,
Yeah.
yeah, I have a big appetite, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very proud of that. But 5 pounds a day, every day. And sometimes, well, one stick of butter per day. Usually, I was just craving so much food, but
Yeah.
especially the fats. So I was eating a lot of fatty meats and a lot of butter. Um, Initially, I gained weight. I gained 25 pounds actually. So during that time, I was listening to a lot of Kelly Hogan's podcasts and episodes because she was similar to me. She kind of went all in carnivore and she started gaining weight. So I was like, okay, if she can walk out of this with a healthy body weight after adapting, I can too. So I
Mm,
really stuck onto that and I allowed myself to eat for once in my life. I stopped restricting. I started eating as much as I wanted, hence
mm.
5 pounds a day. And yes, the weight really packed on quite quick. But I would say after 6 months, my ravenous hunger really settled down. And I think that's key. You kind of have to just honor your cravings, honor your hunger, eat as much as you need to heal,
Mhm.
especially if you're coming from such a restrictive diet, especially if you're a female who is malnourished. And I was. After 6 months, my cravings, hunger settled down, and I was like, okay, I don't need 5 pounds anymore. I feel like, 2 meals a day, 3 to 4 pounds will do. And then my appetite started continuing to settle down. And that's when my weight dropped. So I
Mm.
do feel like there's a correlation when you are not ravenous and you're not eating all day, every day, and you feel satiated and nourished. That's when your body is ready to let go of that extra weight.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that is something that I've noticed as well, is that especially when people are
Yeah.
coming from a very restrictive, uh, lifestyle before that, their body is just really craving nutrients and it's really trying to, just catch up and try to, fill in the corners, of their nutrient deficit. And, when you were talking about, being in late adolescence and early adulthood and worrying about your figure, worrying about your weight and your appearance, which is
Mhm.
very important to, I'd say, everybody really, to a certain extent, even though people, some, it's not healthy to dwell on it. It is something that we naturally do. We want to be attractive to people. We want to, have a nice appearance, um, for a number of reasons, but especially in adolescence, when you're going through puberty and you're going through high school and you're trying to fit in and you're trying to, you know, you know, grow up.
Yeah.
That's a very big concern for people, and I think that there are a lot of people go to, certainly since the 1980s, when they said, fat makes you fat. And so if you should eat low fat, if you eat vegetables, you'll lose a bunch of weight. And so a lot
Mhm.
of people had just, went to that, especially, young women who were very, very conscious of that. And I think that has caused, well, I think that's the reason why more people, more females have gone, vegan and vegetarian than males have. But also, I think that's probably where eating disorders, really started to take off. That's the timing
Yes.
works with it anyway. And you're eating things that your body doesn't necessarily want. You're not really healthy. You are kind of starving yourself, and you sort of get this unhealthy relationship. And like you're saying, you were craving butter, you were craving meat. Well,
Yes.
your body's sort of craving those nutrients before anyway, and so people can get into that, and they can start, eating something that is bad, quote
Mhm.
unquote, and has high fat, maybe high sugar as well, but your body's craving that fat, your body's craving that meat, and you eat and you gorge, and then you binge and then you purge, and that develops bulimia. Or maybe you just don't like the taste of this, but you're certainly not going to eat anything that has fat on it, but you don't want to eat any of that, vegetables, because it makes you feel like crap and it tastes horrible, and so you just don't eat
Mhm.
anything. And
Mhm.
that's my theory anyway, but it seems to sort of describe what's going on. And I think that's that's obviously not the way that we should be eating. If you find yourself into getting into that sort of unhealthy relationship with food, something's wrong. Because nature is natural, it just happens on its own. You don't see deer going on different yo-yo diets. They just eat. Lions just eat, zebras just eat. And we should just be able to eat too. And so that lines up perfectly with what you're saying. You just listen to your body, you eat what your body's asking you to, and then your body takes care of the rest, which is great.
Yeah, that theory is very intuitive and accurate. It pretty much summed up my whole phase of being vegan for 6 years. I started as a very healthy teenager who was pretty, in tune with her body. She had a pretty good, healthy relationship with food. But then when you go through those 6 years, this person became completely out of whack when it came to hunger. She had no idea if she was hungry or full. Lots of binging, lots of forced fasting, fasting for punishment. You do become obsessed with food and like how much you eat when you're not eating the right nutrients.
Yeah, definitely. That was the thing too, with the whole calories in, calories out thing, which is, I think is, just doesn't make any sense anyway. Anyone who's studied biochemistry or organic chemistry, which all doctors should have, because those are prerequisites for medical school, but then they just forget that these complex organic molecules actually have different effects in your body. We measure calories by literally setting them on fire and see how much energy comes off of them, but that's not how your body works. You don't have an internal combustion engine in your body. These molecules work differently in your body. And so there isn't a one-to-one relationship between what is burned and what it actually, how much ATP your body gets out of it. So these things just, work differently. They interact with your complex organic chemicals differently, and they have an effect. They have a chemical effect and reaction in your body. The amino acids, carbohydrates do not respond the same as amino acids in your body. Different amino acids don't respond the same as other amino acids in your body, and different fats don't respond the same as other fats in your body. So it doesn't matter what their calories are in a Bunsen burner. Like that's not how your body uses these things. So I've always thought that was, I thought that was a pretty superficial look at things anyway. And then when you scratch the surface, think about it for a minute, it sort of doesn't make sense. But also, like you're saying, people can eat a different amount, and like you're really counting calories and you're really limiting yourself, and it was still a struggle. And then you start eating this different way. And I certainly was eating like 5 times the amount of calories that I had been before when I went carnivore, and I just stopped eating vegetables and I started eating way more meat and fatty meat, probably quintupled my calories. And I dropped 25 pounds in 2 weeks. Most of that was water weight, but that's part of weight. And so, and then my body just composition started really changing dramatically. But there was a study that looked at, sort of several different groups, and it had a control group as well, but they looked at a high carbohydrate group, a high fat group, and a high protein group, but they kept it same isocaloric. So the same calories. So everyone was eating the same amount of calories, but they were getting those calories predominantly from carbs in one group, predominantly from protein in another group, and predominantly from fat in another group. So what would we expect? If it's only calories in, calories out, and they try to control for people's, activity levels as well. And so what did they find? They found that the carbohydrate group gained weight, and the protein group lost weight. The fat group lost a lot more weight.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. So the whole idea that fat makes you fat, isn't borne out by the evidence, and wasn't based on any evidence in the first place. There's so many things in this world that were just supposition, and they just said, oh, well, if fat makes you fat, you are what you eat. You eat fat, you'll get fat. So eat broccoli. Are you going to turn into broccoli? I haven't seen that yet, and so that's where it comes from, but it just gets repeated and thrown around all the time. It becomes what everyone knows, and everyone knows it. It's like, well, everyone knew the earth was flat too. Like, how'd that one work out? And so, you look back and you don't actually find there's actually any basis for that. But yet people still push this stuff around. Doctors still push this stuff around. Like, notable doctors and nutritionists, well, who self-proclaimed experts in the field, say this sort of thing, but it's not even, it's not based on anything. And then you have these studies as well. So you were at Juilliard, which is awesome. That's fantastic. And you play the piano, is that right?
Yes, I am a pianist. And when I was at Juilliard, I also studied violin. So I play both.
Oh, nice. Great. Yeah. What's your favorite?
Piano or violin, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely piano.
Yeah.
Yes. I would have to say, if you try to pursue a career as a pianist, just get ready to be very lonely, a life of solitude, because with piano playing, you usually are the soloist on stage. And when you're a solo, yes, you have this whole beautiful orchestra behind you, but you are pretty much there alone. All of the work that you deliver on stage, you did it alone. But when you're a violinist, it's a lot of chamber music, a group setting, lots of big orchestra. So you get to be surrounded by colleagues and friends. But I don't know, for some reason, I prefer to be alone. So for me, the piano means spotlight just on me. Yes.
Yeah. That's funny. I was, I mentioned when we spoke on your program, my mom was a singer. She was a classically trained soprano, and she went to Berkeley and did music there and studied, English and music and anthropology. And they actually required that any music major had to play the piano as well. And she's like, I don't want to play the damn piano. I want to sing. Like, I don't want to do this. And so she sort of ignored that. But actually that was what, she actually had a very promising career in, singing. Yeah. And so she was just, getting these sort of offers to be, this diva going around Europe and going around these big productions. But she was sort of the opposite. She really didn't like the spotlight. She just loved singing and she just loved music, but she really didn't like being, in the forefront of the attention. She was a very, very shy person. And so that wasn't really the lifestyle that she wanted. She just loved to sing. And so she decided not to pursue that career and decided to pursue a family instead, which is like, you talk to her siblings and my grandparents, it was like, honestly, they looked at it like it was a crime against God. That she was like, they were like saying, like, my grandparents were like, she had the most spectacular voice that I've ever heard. It was the most beautiful voice. And it was just a crime that she didn't, share that with the world and keep singing. And but she,
at least does she teach? She could be a pedagogue. She could be a teacher.
No, she doesn't teach. But she would always sing when we were kids. And so when we were in the car, she would be listening to music and she'd be singing along. It was always really lovely. And it was always nice to hear her sing. And you're always gonna enjoy your mom singing, but my mom was I especially liked her singing, and
of course,
it was very sweet. So you transitioned into carnivore while you were doing your master's at Juilliard. Is that you did? Where were you at before that? Were you at Juilliard the whole way through, or?
Yeah, so I did master's at Juilliard, and before that, I was still in New York at the New School. I'm not sure if you heard of the New School.
Yeah.
So the New School has a branch just for music called Manus, the School for Music. So I was there for undergrad, and then I went to Juilliard. But I did start carnivore when I was doing my master's at Juilliard, and I literally went from like vegan for a few months of Juilliard and then straight to vegan, straight to carnivore. And I just remember I kept it under the table because everybody who knew me in school knew me as that vegan girl who all she talks about is the vegan diet and why that diet is the best diet in the world. Yeah, I was definitely sucked into that culture and that mindset of just like preaching it into people's faces. So yes, I admit that I was brainwashed and I was very naive. So yeah, I kept it under the table, quite embarrassed. But I knew that meat was needed because I literally dreamed of it for months and months and months. And my doctor literally gave me permission to eat the meat. So I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I just remember like that first night of going carnivore was definitely a night to remember because I felt so good, so instantaneously. And then from that night on, I just was enamored with meat, the flavor of butter, just how good I felt. I actually didn't season my meat from day one because I was so impressed by the flavor of plain meat. and plain unsalted butter and just plain eggs. So I really started carnivore with endless ribeyes, endless eggs, as much Kerrygold unsalted butter as possible, and here and there some raw salmon.
Yeah. That's funny. And because you kept it under wraps and you were then getting all these health benefits, people were going like, wow,
Yeah.
that vegan diet is really working out for you. You're just
Oh my
glowing.
gosh, it's
It's
so
amazing.
funny. People started noticing because they were like, you look real good. Like, what are you doing? What are you working out right now?
Yeah.
And that's when I was confident to share that, oh, I'm not vegan anymore. I'm actually on the carnivore diet. Go
Yeah.
carnivore.
Yeah. And so
I was
this
just
is
so
why this is
passionate.
actually the best. Forget everything I said.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, people noticed before I even had to say anything.
That's funny. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Well, and that sort of, is really reassuring that you're doing
Yeah.
something right, is when other people are like, wow, this you've had some very positive changes. So that's really
Yes.
good.
Yes.
And then, so, what made you decide to actually just share your stories publicly and build a platform, as you have, the steak and butter gal on YouTube is very, very popular. And
Yeah.
I think you have something close to like 70,000 people subscribe to you, which is amazing. And, and obviously they're getting a lot of value out of that, or they wouldn't be there. So what made you decide to sort of make that jump?
The pandemic, actually.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
had nothing to do. I literally graduated on Zoom. I did not even have a graduation ceremony. I'm still so sad about that.
Mm.
But because of the pandemic, I realized wow, I could literally just stay home and practice 24/7, just practice my butt off. But what am I going to do with this skill that I spent my whole life with if I have, I don't know what's going to happen next, right? So I thought that maybe I can do something wiser with my time. Yes, I'll continue practicing piano violin, but I want to explore what the internet can give me. And at that time, I was hoping to share music online, maybe play piano live or do some type of channel. But for some reason, my big sister kind of had this vision for me because she always thought I was like the crazy one in the family who was super extreme with everything and super committed. So she thought that my personality was pretty good for YouTube or some type of, social media account. She thought it would be something fun, but she said, why don't you just do mukbangs eating steak? I don't know if you have heard of the word mukbang,
No.
but mukbang is a Korean style of video where literally
Okay.
Asians will film themselves eating huge meals. And it's
Okay.
like this very popular form of entertainment. And so she was like, you should do that too, because you have a gigantic appetite and all you do is eat steak. That's pretty cool. I was like, maybe. She bought me this nice camera. I use it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of actually started off just sharing, I'm this girl who loves music and I just eat meat. And that kind of blossomed into me just intimately sharing my carnivore diet and my journey. And I have to say, I got a lot of great feedback from the audience who followed me early on. And they really encouraged me to share more details of what I'm healing, what I eat in a day. And I feel like that kind of guided me to where I am today, just like a very passionate carnivore channel, very passionate Instagram page where I really try to encourage my fellow ladies to eat more fat, focus on healing, focus on health.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And so when exactly did you start that? It was during the pandemic, but when exactly? How long have you been doing it now?
2 years, 2 years now. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so now you have, you were saying before that you have, several sessions a week where you actually meet with people and talk with them and discuss everything as well. Have you been doing that the whole time, or is that more of a recent occurrence?
Yeah. So that started as just a support group. So again, one of my followers urged me to just start a support group where, fellow carnivore ladies can just communicate and inspire each other. So I was inspired to either do it on Facebook group, or possibly find something off social media. And I was lucky enough to find this platform called Mighty Networks, which is completely off social media. It is very much community based. So I started it on there. And it grew like overnight. I had so many people who joined. And at that time, it was just online. It was like a forum. And then a few months down the line, a lot of these members were like, let's meet on Zoom, especially with the pandemic. We're all bored and lonely at home, right? Yeah. So I was like, that's genius. So let's actually just hang out, chat about carnivore together on Zoom. And I think that's the beauty of this thing called Zoom, I can literally talk to you across the world, and I can connect with carnivores all over the world, and we can make sure that we are on track. We can make sure that we inspire, answer each other's questions. So that kind of blossomed into what I do now. 30-day carnivore challenges is what I call it. And I really like to make it a monthly thing to make sure everybody is just pumped up for each month. It keeps everyone on track year long. I have members who joined since month one, and they're with me like almost 2 years in. And it's pretty much like a family now. We have 8 hours every single week. We just update each other. I have coaches there to help answer questions. I have guests, for example, you, Dr. Chaffee, who will visit as a guest speaker. So it's like this awesome, family community where we focus on carnivore.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Thanks.
And so obviously it sounds very positive. How are people going with that? Do you find that this is something that's helping people stay on track and get benefit out of it?
Yeah, I have come to learn that community is quite essential, especially for our newcomers, especially for those who are really struggling with staying committed to such a different diet, and especially for my female ladies who I care the most about. I have females who join day one and they're completely lost, but a couple months down the line, they've reached their goal weight, they've healed their eating disorder, they're growing hair again. Like we have members whose success stories just blow me away. We have members who cured cancer. Okay, so it's crazy, gone off all medications. Just today, somebody told me that they're completely free of depression. They don't have to take any medication. So it just makes me grateful every single day after these meetings that I have this community to connect with, because I get the inspiration from this community to make myself work harder to spread the word.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. I think that, a community aspect is very important too, because like you say, like there aren't necessarily too many of us. Like there's a bunch of carnivore restaurants or bars or something like that. You can have like a vegan community, vegan restaurant. And this is all those people would go into that. But, because people are dispersed more lightly around the population, people feel like they're the only ones doing this, that they just feel like a freak and they feel weird that everyone's watching them. No one really cares. But, that's how you feel. You just feel a bit self-conscious about this. And then, having a community, having people to talk to, and like, oh, actually there's a whole bunch of people that are doing this and they're enjoying it and they're finding benefit. And like, okay, maybe that's not so hard.
Exactly. Yeah. When you like align yourself with a community who eats like you, who lives like you, who has the same exact goals as you, it makes it so much easier because you don't feel self-conscious anymore. You can literally just think, oh, my tribe doesn't eat this anymore. My tribe only eats that. So it's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I definitely think that it's a benefit. Like, when I was sort of first doing this, I was doing this just anyway. But, when I was first in my early 20s, doing this, I just did because I knew plants were not good for me. And so I just didn't eat them. But, and I didn't, I didn't even think about it at the time. I wasn't even thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be self-conscious. People are just looking at me. I was just like, I don't need that crap. And I just, and no one batted an eye. They just, no one cared. And then I, I did it again. But then at the same time, I fell off it without really realizing it, because there was no one else doing it and everyone was talking about eating plants. I'm like, really? And but I sort of slipped off of it for that and other reasons. And, now going back in it again, you're looking at different groups on Facebook. Obviously you have your community as well. And so you have these social structures and you have people talking about it. And you're like, oh, okay, actually, there's more to this than I originally thought. This actually is a bigger deal than I would have thought. And I think it helps reaffirm things and it helps, solidify your convictions, for right or wrong, but hopefully for right in this case. But you can see people getting benefits and you can see people, losing weight and dropping their medications and, people coming off dialysis. That's crazy. Like that was one of the early things I saw. People were coming off of dialysis, going on a carnivore diet, and their doctors are saying, you're going to kill yourself if you keep eating like this. And they said, you know what? I don't believe you. Everything you've told me has only gotten me sicker. And so, I'm just going to try this. And then, 9 months later, this lady came off of dialysis, which is just incredible. And then I was able to, mention that to a friend of mine that had kidney failure. He was like at 19% kidney function. And 3 months later, he was at 80% kidney function, and he was
Mhm.
worried that he was going to, not make it to see his daughter graduate high school. That's a
Yeah.
devastating thing to have to deal with, in your 30s, when you have a young child.
Mhm.
And so, and all his doctors again were like, "You're going to kill yourself. If you're eating all this protein, you need to go plant-based, low protein, and take all these meds." And
Right.
he's just like, "No, not doing it." And sure enough, just reversed all of his issues. And so when you see those communities and you see these sorts of things, and people say, "Oh, that's anecdotal evidence," like, I don't give a rat's ass. These are real people. This is real
Yes,
life, you know.
exactly.
And you know what, my experience is anecdotal, but
Mhm.
the plural of anecdote is data. You have a
Mhm.
lot of people having a lot of very similar results and positive benefits. And at the end of the day, I don't care what study says what. If I'm eating a certain way and I'm healthier that way, I'm
Yeah.
just going to keep doing that. It's like, well, but this study says that you should actually, eat shit
Right.
and, stab nails into your legs. I'm like, oh, I guess I have to do it. Harvard study said that. I'm like, well, I don't
Right.
care.
Right.
That sounds awful and it's dumb. So, I'm eating this way and I feel fantastic, and people are eating this way and they're getting able to clear cancer. They're getting rid of
Mhm.
autoimmune disorders. They're getting rid of
Mhm.
heart disease. They're reversing their calcium, the CAC scores for arterial plaques. They're reversing their diabetes. They're coming off all their medications. And you're
Yep.
telling them that well, because there's no study that says this should happen, that it's not actually happening.
Yeah.
Anecdotal
Exactly.
or no, it's happening. And so I think it's very good when you have communities, and some of these Facebook groups have 30, 40, 50,000 people in them.
Yes, it's
There's
growing.
yeah, the keto groups are even bigger,
Oh yeah.
and so those can have millions of people in it. And so you have tens of thousands of people showing significant benefits.
Mhm.
Then it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't need, all of the studies or the exact piece of information that this guy says I need. This is clearly working for people, might as well try it. And
Yes.
and if it's working for you, anecdotal or no, that's what matters.
Yes, I think the power is in the success stories. Yes,
Mhm.
scientific evidence and all these studies are great, but for some reason, when somebody hears a success story of somebody else healing the same condition that they want to
Yeah.
heal successfully and it's cured, it's gone, it's very convincing. So that's
Mhm.
why I feel like anybody who has seen success on carnivore, share it with the world. It can be on YouTube, it can be through a blog, on Facebook, just a post, or on Instagram. I always encourage my followers to create a carnivore Instagram, document it, use those carnivore hashtags so people can actually see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a very good point. And, and just trying to get
Yeah.
that out there, because I mean, how many, vegan, success stories or whatever, or these people talking about this,
Right.
but I think that's very powerful. And I think what's even, more powerful are stories like yours, where you were vegan for a
Mhm,
number of years and
mhm.
probably very conscientious vegan. You were probably looking and like you said, you were doing things exactingly. You were measuring
I
things, you were
was.
calculating things,
Yep.
and then you were getting very unwell and you had nutrient deficiencies,
Mhm.
which of course you're going to have on a vegan diet, because the plant and fungus kingdoms don't have the requisite nutrients for human beings. They just don't, and that will never change. So you have to
Yep.
take supplements. So we know that's not our evolved diet. We know that's not our biologically appropriate diet, because if you have to take supplements, then by definition your diet is deficient. So that can't
Yes.
be what we evolved on. That can't be what we were designed to eat. And so that's an aberration. That's a stepping aside from what we were designed to eat by definition.
Mhm.
And and people say that, well, if you failed a vegan, that means you were doing it wrong. I don't know what that
Mm.
means, but doing veganism right,
Yeah.
or vegetarianism right, actually would mean not taking supplements,
Right.
because you shouldn't have to,
Right.
and so you're taking something outside of the food that you're eating just to get basic nutrition. No animals in the wild have to take supplements, and so if you do, that's something wrong. And so having people like yourself who were very, very careful, they weren't like vegans eating Oreo cookies and shooting heroin, all of which are
No.
vegan and plant-based, you know,
Yeah.
and you were trying to do it as healthy as possible. and yet you were having serious health issues, and then converting overnight, as you say, to carnivore and immediately having benefits. I think those are very, very powerful stories.
Yes. And to this day, I get comments and DMs from vegans who are saying, you totally did not do the vegan diet correctly. How dare you? Right. How dare you go back to eating animals?
Yeah.
And they're definitely sucked into that whole belief, protect the animals for ethical reasons. And I also get DMs almost every day of vegans secretly wanting to eat meat. And what do
Mm,
they ask me? They ask me, how do I start eating meat? I feel bad,
right.
and like we're now guilty to eat meat. But I can say for a fact, like I have never, ever, ever felt as good as I feel now on carnivore. It doesn't matter if I was vegan or whole foods plant-based or the cleanest diet when I was eating everything. Carnivore diet just makes you feel on a different level good.
Yeah, no, it really does. And like, even
Yeah.
I was always very meat centric. I always ate a lot of meat, but even
Mhm.
just dropping the rest of the plants and going exclusively to meat, I mean, it just changed my entire existence. And so I couldn't
Yes.
even imagine like going from vegan to that, because I always had a lot of meat in my diet, but I had all the other things that were detracting from my health, and I wasn't eating as much fat as my body needed, and I wasn't
Mhm.
eating as much meat actually as my body needed, because I was trying to limit calories to stay in shape, for rugby, and or get back into shape to get back on the field. And I've never felt better as compared to myself as a professional athlete when I was on a carnivore diet versus just an omnivorous meat heavy diet, but still as a professional athlete training hours and hours and hours a day, and
Mhm.
working very, very hard. It's just night and day. I feel better now barely ever working out than I did back then training all the time but eating a mixed diet. Like it's crazy how much difference that makes. um yeah, sorry, you want to say something?
Oh no, I'm just
No.
agreeing with
Oh, okay.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, people are saying, it's just like, oh, you just weren't doing it right. How dare you? Like, how the hell would they know? How do they know
Yeah.
what you were doing? But
Exactly.
that's the thing. It's the automatic. Well, they just weren't doing it right. Now they're trying to bring down the whole movement. It's like, you don't
Yeah.
know what these people were eating. And in fact, a lot of people who were very public and vocal about veganism, well, you know exactly what they were eating. They're like, oh, look, I'm doing this fresh thing and this fruit here and this, and this. And they're saying,
Yes.
look at how great this is, and everyone can see, oh yeah, that's the right way to do it, that's the right way to do it. They're even looking at them for inspiration on the right way of doing it and directions on how to do it properly, and then they're going,
Yep.
no, this isn't working. Oh, they
Right.
just weren't doing it right.
Right.
Well,
And look, even a lot of those vegan gurus who I used to follow back in the day when I was vegan, a lot of them are eating meat again. So
yeah.
there really is no way this vegan diet is going to sustain for more than a few years. Yes, some
Mm.
people will bite their tongue and make it work for 5, 6, 7 years, like me, but there is going to come a day where you have to eat meat
Yeah.
unless you want to be sick for the rest of your life.
Yeah, or to take copious amounts of supplements as well. And then,
Yes.
but even if you, and that's what they say too, is like, well, you can take supplements, it's not that hard. Right. But you're still getting all the toxins,
Mhm.
that are in there. I mean, like kidney beans, if you don't cook kidney beans, they will kill you, you know,
Yeah.
and cassava melons, that's like the like in the developing world, that's the third most important source of calories is the cassava melons. You don't prepare that right, it will kill you. It has so much cyanide in it. And then some people, I've had people saying, because there's cyanide in almonds, there's cyanide in a lot of different seeds, because the seed is a plant's baby, like we were talking about,
Yeah.
with coffee. Coffee is a bean is a seed is a plant's baby. And this is where you'll generally find the highest concentration of poisons. And so you have cyanide in quite a lot of these things. And people were saying that, oh, well, that's not true. Cyanide's only dangerous if you inhale it. You should know that as a doctor. I'm like, well, first of all, you're not a doctor, and I do know as a doctor that that's garbage. And so there are people that die from these things. People die from eating cassava melons from the cyanide content. Now, is gaseous cyanide more deadly? Absolutely. It's way more toxic than ingestible cyanide. However, ingestible cyanide in certain forms, obviously, because you have cyanides sort of bound up in other molecules that don't necessarily cause harm. However, actual cyanide, if you're ingesting actual cyanide, that will cause harm and will kill you after a certain point. And cassava melons are a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
And So, whether or not you're taking supplements, which you shouldn't have to do,
Yes.
you're harming yourself. You're bringing harm to your body.
Agreed.
Um, yeah, that was the other thing that I was going to mention. The idea that shows the ethical sides of things. I totally understand where vegans are coming from. Wanting to be healthy and wanting to not harm animals and not harm the environment. I totally agree. I'm with them on that. We agree completely. We just disagree on the best way of going about that. There was a study in Australia that showed that you had to kill 25 times the amount of sentient animals to get 1 pound of plant-based protein than the animal-based protein. And also, if you look at bioavailability and what your body can actually absorb, it's going to be much different than that, because it's actually 1 physical pound of plant-based protein, which you're not going to absorb all of that. And some of that's actually going to be crude protein, which actually isn't even protein. It's just free nitrogen. So you actually do cause a lot of harm to animals. You kill a lot of animals, and in nasty ways. They get caught up in the combines and the tractors, and they get just scrunched and melched, and they're animals coming in, deer, pigs, kangaroo. They come in to eat the crops, and they shoot them, because they're like, well, you're messing with my money. Like, you got to go. And and so a lot of these animals do get killed. Anyone who's worked on a farm, anyone who's been a farmer or rancher knows just how many animals you have to kill to grow a crop. And then you have chemical waste and spillage, that gets into the groundwater, that gets into the water source, and that causes pollution, that causes a lot of mess in the environment, in the ecosystem. And you also have to destroy an entire ecosystem just to grow one massive field of wheat or corn or soy or acai berries. And people say, well, those are all going to feed animals anyway and livestock anyway. No, they're not. The hay is, the stems and the stalks are, but not the actual product. 93% of the feed that animals eat, that livestock eat, are inedible to humans. They can't eat it. This is the waste stuff that normally farmers, when they can't sell this stuff off, they have to burn it, or it would have to get thrown away, but they don't throw it away. You'd have to put it in a landfill if you are not going to burn it. So they just burn it. So that's also causing issues as well. And that people really aren't realizing that, animals play a very vital role in agriculture. You cannot have plant agriculture without animal agriculture. It doesn't work. This is where you get this is how you get rid of all the stems and stalks and leaves and hay. And is you sell it to people who are trying to feed their animals. And this is where you get all the fertilizer for your crops, is from animals. And so, I think it's important to talk about these things. I think it's very important, because they're very important matters, but to actually understand what is really going on, because it's much different than what we're being told.
Yes, well said. So glad you said that, because I feel like a lot of vegans who are contemplating, eating meat again, they're going to watch this video and they're going to finally realize meat is okay to eat. They have permission to eat the meat. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very conscious of your time. I know you said we had about an hour. Thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to say or address?
I just really am passionate about like expressing this message to my ladies, because I really try to make content for the women out there who are struggling with eating disorders, or who are struggling with chronic weight fluctuations, and they're just obsessed with the weight. I really strongly believe when you allow your body to heal first through nutrition, the proper nutrition, which is carnivore diet, fatty meats, lots of meat, whatever meat that you want. When you let go of that restriction, of that fear of gaining weight, and you just let your body heal and get nourished, I do believe all of those goals and the results that you want will happen. But I do want to stress the consistency is super key. So whatever you can do to stay consistent on carnivore, do it. So if that means surround yourself in the right environment online, find a community, watch more videos that align with your goals, watch more of Dr. Chaffee's videos, make sure that you connect with people on Instagram who are carnivores. All of this will help you stay consistent with this lifestyle. And also, I know you're really passionate about this. Going pure carnivore does make a difference. So I will cut out the coffee for sure. See how I feel. That's on my mind.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, and I agree with absolutely, everything you say. I think it's very important. eating disorders are can be devastating,
Yeah.
and hormonal issues are devastating as well. And I did a couple videos on women's health and hormonal health and PCOS and PMDD
Mhm.
recently, just because I've gotten a lot of people from different women's groups asking me about
Mhm.
these things specifically, and can you address these things? Because
Yeah.
and they were always asking. Those were just 70% of the questions, like, can you do that? Can you do PCOS? Can you do PMDD? And so I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, these are obviously something that people are really struggling with.
Right.
And so I think it's, yeah, exactly. I think it's very important that people try to educate themselves, and people like you and I and Dr. Baker and everyone else, and Dr. Ken Berry, who's amazing. We're trying to sort of get this stuff out there, but it's available, and so people can just start just really ingesting this stuff and see what they think. That's good on the coffee. I think you'll feel amazing once you do. And
Yep.
just so and everyone knows, it takes about 2 weeks to get the addiction of caffeine out of your system. And so if you can make it 2 weeks, usually about the first few days, if you're a very heavy coffee drinker, you might get headaches and a
Right.
bit of other withdrawal symptoms. Usually that only lasts a few days. I haven't really
Mhm.
seen it last more than a week, and usually it's getting better after sort of the third day. And
Mhm.
then after that, maybe you have a bit of an addiction, but after 2 weeks, it's really gone and it's getting better the whole time. And so if you can sort of get in your mind, okay, and this is the same for smoking too. Nicotine takes about 2 weeks to get out of your system.
Mm.
And so, if you just say, okay, 2 weeks, I'll go 2 weeks, and then you
Yep.
have a light at the end of the tunnel. And then after that, it's sort of habit. You just remember enjoying it and wanting to do it in certain circumstances, but that's more of a habit, and you can always change a habit. But
Yep.
the addiction side is 2 weeks. So just keep that in
Gotcha.
mind. And so if you go for it, those are your goalposts, and then you should be fine after that.
Got
Yeah.
it. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, thank you so much. Where can everyone find you and support you and see your work?
You can find me on Instagram at Steak and Butter Gal. Same for YouTube, Steak and Butter Gal. And if you would like to join a community that will support you in your carnivore goals and lifestyle, you can come join my Steak and Butter gang. I will give Dr. Chaffee the link. You can put it in the description box if you want to join the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll put all of those in the descriptions as well. And great. I love the names, this Steak and Butter Gang.
Steak and Butter Gang. Yep.
Um, okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope that everyone finds this useful and checks out all your stuff, because I really like it, and I think it's very beneficial for people. Great.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much.